Hey everyone, it's Norm from Tested here, and I have a really awesome show and tell for you today. Recently, Adam was asked in a Q&A, where can people buy garage kits and resin kits? And the answer for me is, well, all over the internet. It's so easy, not only for fans to find garage kits from artists they follow on social media, but for artists also to put out kits themselves. 10, 15, 20 years ago, a sculptor would have to work at home, sculpt their figure, create a mold, and then do a limited run of castings that they may sell to people they meet on a forum. And today, there are platforms and ecosystems that not only allow artists to distribute their work, but also to go through the manufacturing process, and even if they're a 2D graphic artist, to turn their drawings into full 3D models and also resin kits for you and me to pick up and paint. And one of the places that we've loved picking up resin kits from is Industria Mechanica. Sean Charlesworth introduced me to that site years ago. In fact, if you watched that one-day build that Adam and I did years back where we painted that cosmonaut statue, that was from Industria Mechanica. And I use places like Industria Mechanica to discover and follow artists that I didn't know about as well. One is named Michael Herm. He goes by Techo Toys on Instagram. And over the past year or so, Michael has been developing his own line and his own universe of mechs. His specialty is mecha. And he has a universe called Age of Mecha, and he has launched a Kickstarter for 1/35th scale toys in that world. Now, this is all self-designed, self-taught. As a 3D modeler or an animator, Michael bought a 3D printer, bought a Formlabs printer, and started making and prototyping his own toys. And so in lieu of meeting him at a place like DesignerCon or Monsterpalooza, I've been corresponding with Michael online, and he sent me some prototypes of his Age of Mecha that I was able to check out, and I want to share those with you today. So first of all, in this world, you have 1/35th scale characters, like this guy right here. And at this scale, at this size, it may resemble like a tabletop miniature, something that a lot of 3D printer owners have started printing out. There's a great number of artists putting out tabletop miniatures. But this is a little bit more than that because it's fully articulated. So not only do you have this incredibly detailed SLA print of this character at 1/35th scale, it's actually multiple pieces that are popped together and snapped together. So you have things like a rotating head, you have ball joints for the shoulders and for the leg and for the torso, and bending knees, and everything at this tiny scale perfectly interlocks. I can't imagine how much trial and error and prototype it takes to get this character design and made, but this is just so gorgeous, and this is just the start. So this soldier, of course, fits in Michael's universe, and in addition to these characters themselves, they're also mecha and exosuits. So one step up is something like this. This is an exosuit, still humanoid, but it's not just a little robot here that articulates. Underneath this exosuit is a pilot itself. It's actually designed so you have a character like this put on armor that then is this exosuit. And the pieces perfectly snap on. All the articulation is maintained. There's even extra articulation in the suit pieces themselves. And it's just incredible amount of detail. You can actually see that it's an exosuit with the character holding a joystick there, moving these larger articulated hands. That is just super, super cool. That is also, it's Age of Mecha, so moving step up again, you have 1/35th scale mechs. And this blows my mind. Not only is it aesthetically right up my alley in terms of the mech design, in terms of the detail at this scale. So it reads as 1/35th scale with all the panel details, the great details, the exhaust details of these canisters, but also the articulation. So you have things like these arms, which are on ball joints and hinges and articulated fingers. You have a torso that's on a ball as well that can rotate, and legs that have a double jointed knee, super important if you want flexibility in the posing, and also an ankle joint right here, super posable. Lovely details. I love handlebars, especially. These really help give a sign of the scale when you have these kind of bars on mechs. But it is a mech, so this canopy actually opens up and reveals a cockpit with a 1/35th scale character inside as well. And just look at that interior detail. We're not just talking about 3D printing and 3D modeling on the exterior. You have that same type of relief and detail on the interior as well. A hatch that opens up. Oh my goodness. I love that there's actually a perfectly fitted interior cockpit with joysticks and buttons and footrests, that it's not just one piece, it's multiple pieces that layer on top of each other to make this read at this dimension. Oh, it's just super, super gorgeous. And I've had so much fun posing it and photographing it. And so while you enjoy some of these close-up shots of this mech, I was able to get Michael on a Zoom call to have a conversation with him as if we were at a convention about his design process and how he went about prototyping this Age of Mecha. So I'm really thrilled to be joined now by Michael Herm. Michael, thank you for connecting with me. You're based in Germany, is that right?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, Berlin, Germany. That is, yeah, it's 11 p.m. now here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I see behind you that you have like prototypes of your figures. It looks like you've been doing this for a long time. I know for this particular project, watching it, following it kind of evolve on Instagram has been a real joy. But can you give me a little bit of background of you as an artist and your kind of your past experience designing kits and figures?
Yeah, I started as an animator, actually in a games company way back early 2000. And at some point in 2010, I think it was, I had a bit of spare time on my hands between jobs and started to design and own four-legged mech walker. Which then became eventually the first model kit I was able to do in collaboration with Michael Fichtenmeier and Industrial Mechanical.
Was that the Rook? Was that the Rook character?
Yeah, exactly. That's the Rook. Yeah, I actually have it here. I can show it real quick if you want.
Oh my gosh, would you? I would love to see it. Oh, I didn't realize it was so massive. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's really, it weighs a lot because Michael decided to have this whole thing, except for the canopy cover, in one piece. So wow. It's really massive resin. You get a lot of material for your money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the design of a resin kit is very different than the design of an articulating figure, even though a lot of your aesthetic sensibilities are retained in terms of the mechanical mech design. It's what I love about some of your work. We don't see a lot of hard edge mechs in the hobby world. We see a lot of creatures. So can you talk about for Techo Toys, the development of this universe, this line, and at 1/35th scale, and kind of what you wanted to get across?
The 1/35th scale actually came from working with Michael. He does a lot of Michael Fichtenmeier, Industrial Mechanical. He does a lot of 1/35 scale model kits, and I always liked the idea of like having these small kits and the figures, but you still have this incredible detail and everything you can do with the resin kits. And as a kid, I was a big fan of the Starcom action figure line, and kind of felt sad that the scale disappeared over the years, so you couldn't find it anymore. I'm not a real collector, but I'm very fond of toys, and I kept some from my childhood. And I thought, why not? I mean, with resin kits, usually like I always try to incorporate some moving parts, which made the cards, of course, a little bit more complicated. And Michael thought, okay, for the resin kit builders, for his customer base, it's not really an issue, but we can do some things. But I always try to go a little bit further as far as I can. And then at some point it hit me and said, why not have a go at creating a toy line, an action figure line at the scale? And and so we started with the Age of Mecha designs.
And articulation, that must be the animator in you speaking, wanting to rig it up. And I know it's not exactly the same, but you're designing all these joints, and you're able to send one of these. It's gorgeous aesthetically. You're able to hide the joints in the design. That's what I love so much about these, is that it reads as one cohesive piece.
The thing is, what I was mostly interested by when I started with the Rook was how could this actually be? How could the Mech move? Like, what's the underlying frame, the mechanics, the pistons, the motors, the joints, and everything. So I started out with a basic frame, like hard metal structures, and I created these pistons and the cables around, and everything moves. Before I had an animation, so I tested everything. And then I started like this design approach of form follows function. I started to apply the armor pieces afterwards, and then just played around with shapes and see if I like it. And I tried to use the same approach with the Age of Mecha toys. So first I designed sort of a frame and checked, does it move correctly and everything. And then afterwards I designed the armor plates around it and the whole aesthetics and yeah.
And that seems to be one of the breakthroughs here. Like your mechs, they can curl up even into a ball because you've designed those joints so they have this kind of nice resting position, and then all of them kind of have that similar design aesthetic, right?
Yeah. I found it nice, the idea to have this kind of functionality, that it could actually be a real world thing, or like that it could crouch down so the pilots can easier get into the cockpit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really something I liked as a kid when I had my own toys, and was a big fan of, like I said, Starcom. I like the moving things, that you could compact them into container form, stuff like that. And also other toy lines like G.I. Joe with the detailed cockpits and everything. And I've been looking at studying other mecha toy lines, and I kind of missed that a little bit, like all of this coming together. Like this really, really great stuff from Kotobukiya. They have a similar concept with a frame and you put the parts on. It's like considered a model kit. But I was always a little bit sad that they lose kind of the posability. As when you put them together, they're kind of limited because of the armor parts, and they easily fall off. And so I thought, you could actually have something that works. And even if you exchange the armor parts, like if you have different designs and exchange them and come up with a system so it doesn't limit your ways of posing the thing.
That's some of my favorite parts of mech design, when it looks to me, even at whatever scale, that mechanically it's believable that these are pistons, these are actuators, but you don't have to follow the rules of physics, of weight and how fast they can move. It's just like, okay, something like this could exist in the fantasy world, and there's a logic to the way you connect the joints. Can you talk a little bit about your prototyping process and 3D printing these, and how it is different from doing resin kits?
I mean, I started out completely as a novice, trial and error from the very beginning. The way I usually go about with 3D design is I rarely do any sketches because over the years I was trying around with designing directly in 3D, and I like the idea to have like no limitations, no muscle memory, which you usually get from drawing after a few years, and repeating your shapes, trying something new, and just taking like very primitive shapes, quads, spheres, cubes, the stuff, and just meshing them together and see if you can come up with something interesting. And when I'm happy with that, I try to build in little rigs so I can test the movement ranges and everything if the joints would work. And then I started at some point to test print these and made further adjustments. I actually started out with the pilot action figures because I wanted to get the hang of like creating these small ball joints and you have to think a lot about how thin-walled can you go on such a small scale, especially with printer resin. So I had to find out the hard way that it's very brittle, unfortunately. And I think it took me around 42 iterations before I had the first pilot working as I imagined. And from that, I went on to the Mech frames. I really started with the underlying frame, like there was no armor yet, not anything, and just printed out very rough or blanks, so to say. And in the beginning, I had planned everything snap fit, but that didn't work out quite well. For the action figures, for the prototypes, it works out perfectly, almost. I mean, the joints become a little bit loose over time, but the more weight you have, the more severe this development within the material is. So at some point, or pretty fast, I switched over to hex screws. And yeah, so I designed a little bit, test printed, put them together, see if everything works. And as soon as that worked, and I had like a basic frame I could build upon, I started to come up with the torso shapes, with the body shapes, and the different design and armor shapes.
And now you can do plenty of variations, which you're kind of unveiling with your Kickstarter campaign. And it's just been a joy to watch your journey, like I said, on Instagram, as you go through your iterations as a one-man toy designer to learn and go to prototyping and now to launch this lineup. Age of Mecha is what it's called, and people should definitely check it out. Thank you so much, Michael, for jumping on and chatting with me late at night where you are around the world. I wish we could meet up at a place like DesignerCon or a convention, but maybe in the future. And good luck with the rest of the campaign.
I hope so. That would be absolutely amazing. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for having me.
So I want to thank Michael for jumping on the line with me, and I hope that gave you some insight into how he designed and prototyped this toy line, which he's launched on Kickstarter. And something that I took away that I was incredibly impressed by was his approach to designing a whole line of characters and mech designs. He doesn't have to start from scratch every time. If he's going to design a new mech, he actually has as its foundation an armature, an understructure that has the versatility and modularity that can support a whole different line. And to illustrate that, here, for example, is just the leg section of that same mech I showed earlier with all of the panels removed. And you can see both the mechanical design as well as the aesthetic design here. Mechanically, you have this ball joint for the torso, and so you can kind of design any type of canopy that then snaps on top. And then you have ball joints for the hips as well for a really nice range of movement. You have, like I mentioned, incredibly important, that double jointed knee with 2 hinges there. And that's just bolted in. You can actually tighten it in this prototype. And then the legs here, love this leg design because not only do you have a hinge joint right here, underneath that there's also an ankle joint, it's a ball joint for the ankle, which is super important for posing that leg and that foot and having it brace on any type of surface. And if you look at the foot here, there's additional modularity because the foot actually can transform. There are 2 additional hinges right here so that you can actually flip up the foot pads and have it switch from static foot pads to wheels underneath. Just super, super thoughtful. You basically turn this toe mechanism here, this bidirectional toe, into something that also has some interesting function as well. And then aesthetically, it reminds me of putting together like a Gundam, because even though this understructure is going to be covered up with armored panels, Michael has put in all the aesthetic detail, all this relief detail to, again, retain that look of the 1/35th scale. So when you look at it, from a distance, or you put it up, you look at it up close, you can see, okay, based on the size of these holes here, yeah, a human character would be about this big. And the same with the arm as well. Ball joint for the shoulder, hinge joint here for the elbow, ball joint for the wrist, articulated fingers, and even an opposable thumb with a ball joint there so it can grip the accessories. Super, super cool. It's beautiful both inside and outside. So much thoughtfulness that went into this whole line. Well done, Michael. I'm just blown away by the work here and the level of detail here. Good luck on the Kickstarter. And for you out there, if you want to check out the Techo Toys Age of Mecha line, I have links below to where you can follow Michael and to his Kickstarter as well. The prices are actually really reasonable. You can get a mech with a pilot for like $66 US. It's well worth checking out. And one more thing, Michael also took the time to design some one-offs of both me and Adam as 1/35th scale astronauts in his world. I'm speechless. This is super, super cool. I'm gonna head over and drop this off in the cave with Adam. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. Check out the Kickstarter in the links below, and we'll see you next time.